Recording in progress.
Let's go.
Welcome to the GR Pod episode 5, U.S. Nationals. Jake?
Today we begin with a quote from a great sportsman of all time, Vince Lombardi. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. Vince Lombardi.
Boom. I love this quote. It reminds me of two things. Well, actually, what you just said reminds me of two things. One, you said the word sportsman. And the other day in a conversation I had with a Slovak woman who spoke no English through a somewhat English-speaking translator, I was asked if I was a sportsman. And I said yes. And the other is that I love this quote, and I actually used it in college during the Dartmouth Carnival weekend when the captains of the ski teams gave speeches, and everyone else's speech, I will say, was lame. I don't think anyone of them is going to be listening to this podcast. And I got up there with this quote and just looked everyone in the eye and quoted that. And then I was like, this weekend, we may not have reach perfection, but we will chase it and catch excellence. And then I just metaphorically mic dropped and left. And everyone thought it was kind of weird, but I thought it was awesome.
Speaking of awesome, there are a bunch of cedar sprigs out in the world doing awesome things, and we're going to catch you up on where they are.
Yeah, but where in the world are the Cedar Sprigs? The GRP Cedar Sprig ski team
are in Sun Valley for Super Tour action.
GRP Row.
GRP Row grinding away at the outdoor center, skiing, erging. It's just a big wad farm. They've converted it in our absence.
Shout out to Concept 2. GRP Run.
GRP Run, getting psyched with entries. 2 entries on GRP Run to UMTB. Trail running race at Mount Blanc. Big step for the program, and excited to see GRP Run go international next year.
All right, GRP Biathlon. Just give us the rundown.
GRP Biathlon IBU Cup, right here in Ozerby, Slovakia. IBU Cup action. GRP Men's World Cup Biathlon. Jake Brown right there.
Written out in Italy.
Renowned Val Ridana. Right?
Yes, sir.
Nailed it for altitude training camp. And then GRP Women's World Cup Biathlon. Making some serious waves in Ruhpolding in the relay. So lots of different stuff going on, some training, some racing, and go Sprig, go.
Boom. Go Cedar Sprigs, official mascot of the Craftsbury Green Racing Project. And now, what we've all been waiting for, a little U.S. Nationals review. U.S. Nationals Soho, like a week and a half ago in Utah. It was a big deal. Olympic year, there were bonus points on the line for Olympic qualification.
I'm sorry, Luke, did you mean the LLB, U.S. National Cross Country Championships?
Why, yes, Raleigh, I did mean that, and thank you for correcting me.
Okay, so we're on the same page.
What we're going to do is just go race by race and see what jumps out at us. There was a great live stream. There's great commentating. And
maybe there was live timing. We don't really know.
Occasionally there was live timing, and there was a chat room on the live stream. So the first race was a skate sprint. I'm just going to start with results. We're going to go through it. Rosie Frankowski won the qualifier over Mariel Polis, who is from Estonia and skis for UAF.
SD.
Huh?
SD.
Estonia.
Mm-hmm.
And Will Koch was kind of the surprise of the day, to be honest, and beat JC Schoonmaker in the qualifier, and then was knocked out of the quarterfinals. And what we focused on and what those results were the qualifier, because that's what counts for Olympic qualification.
Absolutely.
To start off with, this skate sprint reminded me of the 2019 Seefeld World Championships. If people watched those races a few years ago, there's a huge downhill into the finish, and nobody wanted to lead in that downhill. And I remember Jesse led into that downhill. Other people would try to lead it downhill and just get gobbled up and passed. So I don't know if you guys remember those races, but if you have thoughts on the course, what do you guys think?
So my thought on this course is that I've never raced the sprint course there, but from a spectator's point of view, I think it's a lot of fun. I think that it's fun to see who's going to be brave and go off the front at the beginning, who's going to be tactical, who's going to be like, I am absolutely just not going to lead into this downhill, and I will ski as slowly as I need to make that happen. And the other people that are like, you know what, I think I can do it. And then, like sort of how each heat unfolds. I think that from a spectator's perspective, it's a lot of fun to see how that works. I would say my other thoughts on this course, I can see from a competitor standpoint where you can think that like, okay, this is a lot of race that really just comes down to like a downhill and like a 200-meter drag race. I can also see the frustration where this is a course that really punishes people that don't have the best skis or teams that did not have the best wax, and I can see that being frustrating for different programs. But from the couch I watched this race on, I enjoyed this configuration.
I thought as a fan, it was super fun to watch, not least because of all the crashes that were happening on the backstretch, which on the flip side, I think from a competitor's standpoint would be really frustrating. I just think it's kind of a bummer when some things that, a race that's big like this and has a lot on the line for qualifying sake can be affected by crashes. And I think it was a combination of the course and the conditions in this skate sprint, where you had the guy in the front, oftentimes guy or girl in the front, who would start free skating while everybody else was coming up on the side with the glide. And that would cause kind of an issue as people started free skating at different times when you're like 5 wide in kind of a narrower stretch. So that was just a bummer to see, in my opinion. At the same time, though, I think it's important. Like tactics are like an important part of the game. So it goes both ways. I guess I would have loved to see things play out a little more like they did in the Classic, which maybe us sprinters don't love because it was such a long race. But I did feel like in the Classic, there was a little bit more of a chance that if you went with other tactics than just wait and don't be the first one down the downhill, that you still had a chance to maybe win. And if you executed your tactic well, then, things could go your way. Whereas I feel like if you had the tactic and you executed it perfectly of just going hot off the line in the skate sprint, you were not going to have a good day. You had to not be leading on that downhill. So that was kind of a bummer. Yeah. I think sprinters should be able to be rewarded for executing their tactic really well that they go into.
Yeah. And I guess for people maybe who didn't watch the live stream, the Soho course did look very challenging, especially as a qualifier when you were doing it by yourself. There was a lot of climbing, a series of like 3 uphills with some rest in between, but then it went into a super long sweeping downhill corner and then into the straightaway. And that super long downhill, if people were close together at all, it bunched back up. And so that's kind of what we're talking about with not wanting to lead into that downhill. And Jay, to your point, for a race that had a lot on the line, it was the qualifier that mattered obviously a national title is important. And in a way that's still a lot on the line for people who are trying to get that title. And there's payout for Super Tour racers, which is awesome. And but it was the qualifier, which I think was still a very challenging sprint course, which is a good qualifier.
You're right. I forgot about that. Good point.
Yeah.
Hey, can we get into the results a little bit? Because you just mentioned that Will Cook won the qualifier. And I know like people probably know who Will Cook is now. He's had some great results as a junior, but when was it where a few years ago in Houghton, Luke, I was doing biathlon, but you were still in skiing at the time, when JC Schoonmaker won the qualifier, and everyone was like, who is JC Schoonmaker? And I feel like this is a little bit of like the unexpected Will Cook takes it from JC Schoonmaker, and it's pretty exciting. I don't know how JC ended up doing in those heats in Houghton. It was Houghton, right?
That sounds right.
Putting you on the spot.
I think so.
Yeah. So maybe
that's a great point.
JC Schoonmaker.
I wonder how JC did in those heats. What if he got knocked out in the quarterfinals? Do we just have a replaying narrative right there?
Yeah, maybe we'll see that replay in the future to Will Cook when he's getting top 5s on the World Cup.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So the second race was the skate mass start. We're going to start with the guys. On the guys' side, Scott Patterson won by 11 seconds over David Norris.
Wait, Luke,
Scott's, yeah.
come on. Caitlin Patterson won the classic. That's our teammate. We freaking crushed.
Guys, I'm sorry. I have looked up his results so many times because I wrote a skinny ski article on it. And this time I only looked up the qualifier and I wrote my notes on the qualifier, and I apologize.
Forgiven.
To everyone.
Not
I
forgiven.
apologize to Caitlin. I apologize to Caitlin for calling it her 8th national championship and not her 10th. And now she has 11, which is very impressive. So thank you.
Yeah.
Raleigh, do you want to just?
I mean, I thought the final was really fun. I think that it did highlight for me the difference between just like straight qualifier speed and being able to have the confidence and the fitness to make your way through rounds. You know, I know that like the Olympic qualification and the points off the qualifier is important, but I think that, you know, for the folks at home and, you know, also for, you know, the athletes themselves, you know, that journey through the day and for the people there, you know, pretty significant. But yes, Caitlin, number 10. Legend.
Yeah.
GRP legend.
I guess now that we're remaining in the conversation and I tried to just take it away from us. One of the interesting things about this day was that it seemed like it was more of a day for sprinters on the guy side in terms of the heats, and maybe more of a day for distance skiers on the women's side. I mean, obviously Caitlin is a good sprinter, but it's more of a distance skier. And Becca Rohrbrow from APU gets second in the final. And I thought that was awesome. We have all these up and coming skiers, lots of energy. That's great. It was really cool to see these two people who are now veterans of the Super Tour and go 1-2.
Yeah. Okay. Skate master.
All right, we can move on.
Move on.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, skate mass start. Scott Patterson won over David Norris. Scott has kind of had a tough beginning half of the season. He had a broken wrist in the fall and going late into the fall. I don't know. And then, but he's obviously come back and he's much more on form than he was before. The other thing to note on the guy's side was that APU gets 6 in the top 10 in the guys 30K, which was just a dominant team performance. On the women's side, Rosie Brennan came back from the World Cup. The next couple of World Cups got canceled, and so more of the World Cup skiers came back, and some of them raced. Brennan won by a minute 20 over her APU teammate, Rosie Frankowski. And the GRP, Green Racing Project, got went 3-4-5, which was kind of the team highlight on the women's side there.
Absolutely. So my takeaways from this race were I thought having Brennan in this race was really interesting because, you know, Brennan is now, I would say, you know, a bona fide international elite skier, distance racer. And having her in the field, I think, to me, showed that the women's domestic field is quite strong. Like, she won by a lot. But, you know, the developing skiers, the next generation, are really right there. And I thought it was really cool to see those racers on the same course as Brennan. You could think to yourself, like, yeah, that's like Rosie Brennan, but that also, like, you know, could be any number of Europeans doing, you know, similarly well, or she would maybe even outperform them there because, you know, she has familiarity with the venue and those sorts of things. So Brennan setting the standard was really cool. I thought that the guys race that Scott Patterson made it absolutely brutal by making that move early in the race and just being like, okay, I'm going to put my cards on the table and we're going to see what you guys got. I thought that if he hadn't done that, the race could have played out a lot differently. I think Scott Patterson's performance sort of cemented for me and kind of this trend of like the specialists doing the business in the races that they needed to do the business in. So those were my men's race takeaways.
Yeah, and I'll just respond to the fact of Rosie Brennan coming back and putting in that really strong performance and letting us experience and the other women in that race experience what a World Cup elite skier can do and how that race would potentially go on the World Cup was really cool. And for a lot of our domestic athletes that go over to Europe, not having experienced that, to have a race and maybe more races in the future, whether it's spring series or whatnot, but getting to race against our skiers who are now top of the World Cup is really good for the domestic circuit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was totally cool. And that was something that Adam Verrier brought up a million times, I think, during that race on the broadcasting, which I'm going to use this as my opportunity to say shout out. That was really good. He made it really fun to watch those races, really good commentary. So that was well done. If you were watching the broadcast, you probably noticed that. I think my takeaways are pretty dang similar. I thought APU also had fantastic skis that day. You could just see it watching in that lead group, especially when those guys were working together. When you had before Scott had really, it was kind of him and David that were able to gap the rest of the group. But Scott made the initial move. Then there was kind of a group of seven guys, and then David, Hunter Wonders, and Scott all were kind of working together for a while, and everyone was just kind of trying to hang on. And you could see that APU had really strong skis that day. But it also was interesting to me to watch a little bit of what was going on behind Scott after he did finally make the gap from David. And there was a lot of like movement going on. Like Ian Torchia at one point like made a really strong move to second, and then he kind of died, and David was kind of going back and forth. So it was interesting to see kind of like when people got second wins. And it was just, like you said, well, I think it looked totally brutal from, all of us have experienced races where you're just like kind of racing alone for a distance race. And, especially for the guys, I feel like that doesn't often happen. Oftentimes it just like kind of it's just guys hang out in a pack for a while. So, maybe now they understand what the women go through almost every time they do a distance race. So,
yeah, I thought about that. I was like, I feel like I'm watching a women's mass start here. And just the GRP women going 3, 4, 5 was super, super cool. And I just reflected on all the training that I saw them do together. And the same thing with Annika and Michaela, really not that far behind. So I think that was just a huge day for our program to show the depth at the national level. Us in a race that, we should be strong in, because all of those women work really hard and are at a high level, but to see it all like laid out in a championship, really, really special.
Yeah. For sure. And what you were saying about Patterson making it hard from the start, that's kind of goes along with your specialist doing what they need to do in their specialty. And like Scott is a guy who grinds, and like that's why like you want him in the 50K. That's why he's had success in marathons, and that's what he is good at, and that's what he did.
Speaking of specialists,
great transition rally. The classic 10 and 15K for women. Our very own, once again, Caitlin Patterson won by 53 seconds. And Adam Martin won the guys race by 48 seconds. These are big margins in 10 and 15Ks, and we're going to brag about them because that's really cool. And this is the Green Racing Podcast.
Yeah, we are gonna bow down to the king and queen of interval start distance classic racing. They are members of our club. They have both been my roommates at one point or another. I can't say that I was super surprised by this result based on my conversations with both these individuals and the training I've seen them do and what I know of their capabilities. I will also say when I saw the conditions, I was like, this is going to be a day for Adam Martin. And I had a brief conversation with Caitlin Patterson about like, I just did a ton of skate skiing. My classic skiing feels really good. And I was like, well, prayers to everyone else. And then the 10K classic race. It was so cool. It's the first time that the GRP has won 2 national titles in one day. There's a lot of talk around like the 10 and 15K being, race of truth, who's really got it, who has the speed, but can also make it happen over a long distance. And this race was wild because I was watching the live stream and the live timing was not working. And I was trying to do results on my phone. And when Adam and Caitlin are like doing splits off of the video like at the finish line, and I am like infamous. I can't do splits if I'm not using a race splitter. And like I'm doing the splits and I'm just like trying to figure it out, and I'm just like adding it up. I'm like, okay, and just there's also like the eye test, like, okay, Adam looks like he's going really fast, and like Caitlin looks really good, and I'm like, I think they just run by a lot, but I don't really know. And then you see the split and you're just like, oh yeah, yep, they did the business. So that was super cool. And also on the women's side, another great display of depth all the way down. So yeah, huge day for the program. And I think this is what you call in team sports a statement win from the national champions.
I got a text from Braden before this race that he had accidentally told, I don't know if it was an accident, but had mentioned to Adam, like, yes, you're probably like one of the favorites for this race, or the favorite for this race. I was like, you can't be saying that. And Adam, I guess Adam was like, no, what do you mean? What do you mean? But totally, I agree with you.
Right.
I mean, I had my money on Adam from the get-go, and just, yeah, so stoked to see him pull off the win. And you just know that this was a race. It is special because you know that this was a race that was just like circled on the calendar. Like that's the day that I want to execute. And he just went out and totally did it. And that's really hard to do. And, even if you are as fit as a fiddle like Adam Martin is, to actually do it and get it done it has to be just like so fulfilling. So, I'm stoked for Caitlin too. I mean, she's 111. This is Adam's first, and I have to imagine it's super special. It's in his specialty, and to just like make the statement, like you said, so cool.
Yeah. Maybe going back to our quote from last time from Winston Churchill, this was the moment that Adam Martin was tapped on the shoulder and,
yes,
picked to do something great. And he was prepared for the moment.
Yeah. And the same for Caitlin Patterson. And this is the race that Catherine Ogden joined.
Yep.
For.
Yeah. KO was second.
And so, can't hurt to beat someone that's on the US ski team either.
Yeah. Yeah, and continuing along with highlighting some team trends, BSF had 3 in the top 10 in that class in the women's race. And then APU had 4 in the top 10 in the guys race. And actually UAA, the University of Alaska Anchorage, also had 4 in the top 10 in the guys race, which was a very impressive collegiate team result.
Yeah.
And for me, that was kind of the one example. Maybe there was one other race where a collegiate team did very well, but otherwise I honestly was impressed with the professional teams in the US competing against the top NCAA skiers, because there are many times where the top, both domestic and international NCAA skiers can dominate some of these races. So
not today.
Jake, you have anything else to add before you move on to the last classic sprint race?
Let's do it. Let's go to the sprints.
Cool. All right. So the last race was not technically a national championship, but it was a super tour and counted for those points. Catherine Ogden in the qualifier was victorious over Julia Richter from the University of Utah, who is from Germany. The team highlight there was actually, I guess this was the other time where a collegiate team had a great team result. Michigan Tech had 3 women in the top 10, and they've showed some sprinting ability in the past as well. On the guys' side, this classic qualifier is where JC came to do his thing and did his thing, and won by, I think, almost 6.5 seconds over Peter Holmes, who was second. And honestly, we were super busy this day.
Yeah.
Right? This was the day we were like
happy
that we left. So
then we were scrambling to get our butts across the Atlantic. So we don't have a ton of data on this race. My thoughts on this, mostly around, Peter Holmes was my roommate in college. We both went to UNH. So shout out Peter for really good race there. Classic sprinting. Always, you never really know what you're going to get, especially domestically. Like, it's one of those things that sometimes distance skier can do really well. Sometimes the pure sprinters really make it happen. Has a lot to do with skis and kind of what makes it happen on the day. This was another situation where Caitlin Patterson qualifies well.
Yep.
And then winds up on the podium. at the end of the race.
Yep, she qualified 6th. And what did she end up as?
And
Second, right? Second.
Wound up second. And I think that this race, like you were saying, Jake, this course as a classic course is really a lot of fun because it's so cool to get that double pole drag race down the final stretch and people changing tracks. And I think it works pretty well. Like I said, the equipment disparities really come to light. And I'm not going to say that that's why JC won a classic race by so much, because he's a very, very good skier. But I imagine that the Fisher skis that JC gets are classic skis, or maybe a little different caliber than some of the other people he was racing. But who knows?
Yeah, but then when it came to the heats, it was a different story. I mean, I thought the main story here were that the heats took a long time, and the snow got really slow. It got really warm over the course of the day, and you saw that happen in the times of the race. It didn't get too much slower as the heats went on, but a bit. And especially in the women's field, it seemed like the lucky losers, they both came from the first 2 heats that were 5 seconds at least faster than all the other heats, and you could just see it start to slow down throughout the day. Super interesting race to watch. I got to watch most of the heats in this one, and it was super cool to see. On the women's side, GRP put our entire team in the semifinals. That was like a huge another patting our own team on the back here, but they actually crushed it in this test of fitness. And I think you saw that, seeing higher bibs making it farther. Margie was bib 26 and made the final. And then the big winner I thought was Hannah Rudd from BSF, bib 22, finishing 3rd. And, that was one where I also, watching her race, she had fantastic skis at the end of the race. BSF must have done a great job. Carl Schultz was another one who seemed to have fantastic skis towards the end, but also, they played their cards right. Especially Carl in his semi. This was one where I enjoyed watching these heats because you could get away. If you were able to get a big enough gap down before the downhill, you were able to execute that tactic to a victory. It wasn't that you couldn't lead at that point. So this was a much more exciting and entertaining race for me to watch, despite it maybe being pretty grueling for all the sprinters involved, just because the race took so long.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to double down on the GRP women's performance, that show of depth, especially in a knockout race where so much can go wrong, and having so many people be able to have the wherewithal to make it through those rounds all together. And so Caitlin Patterson 2nd, Alex Lawson 5th, Margie Freedom 6th, Annika Landis 8th, Michaela Keller-Miller 10th. Michaela Keller-Miller, after like shattering her ankle this summer and like just doing a lot of ski erging. Turns out ski erging helps with your classic skiing and your sprinting. So, if you have a lower body injury, don't despair and like maybe try to get onto a ski erg.
Yeah, Jake, didn't that work out?
I feel like I know someone that like kind of worked out for.
Yeah, but I didn't have to do striding. I think Michaela struggle a lot more with striding in classic, even like a month ago. So yeah, pretty dang impressive. Also, like they all had, came into the qualifiers. Like I mentioned, Margie had bib 26, but Alex was in the final. She had bib 18. And you guys mentioned the other women, Michaela Keller-Miller was bib 21. Annika was bib 20. So they really did their damage in the heats. And as the day went on, they became stronger.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks guys. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Did you have any other takeaways that you wanted to share?
My closing thought is that Nationals might be over, but Super Tour in Sun Valley is like pretty loaded because they canceled 2 FIS World Cups, the 2 FIS World Cups between
Christmas
and
between the Tour de Ski
and the Olympics. So I think Zach Ketterson is back.
Yeah.
I think Catherine Ogden is back. Who knows who else is going to show up? And this racing is going on as we speak. So it's not nationals, but it's also just like some really good people racing in the United States, which is really cool to see. So and it over, folks.
I'm gonna go check results.
The story continues.
We could try to get a live look. Let's see.
Yeah, I just tried to look. load results and.
We're- Viewers at home, we're gonna have a little race here. We got 3 devices, and we're gonna see who can figure out sportstats.ca website first.
Yeah, this website is not doing me good.
Yeah, I'm behind because I'm on the U12 women's individual start race, so I don't think that we're gonna discuss that on the podcast.
I mean,
Here we go. Women's 5K. Am I in the lead?
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just clicked up women's
Okay.
5K and nothing is happening. I think we should probably
It's
wrap
not
this up.
happening either. Yeah.
But if you want to participate, viewers at home, try to find results from Sun Valley.
Yeah, put them on your Insta story and tag Green Racing Projects so I don't have to screenshot it later.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for listening. And that live stream at Nationals, if we had that, I mean, I know we've tried live streams in the past for Super Tour, for the whole Super Tour season, but that was fun. I'd be interested in watching more.
Yeah.
Alas. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Raleigh.
Thanks, Luke.
Thanks
We'll
for
see
all
y'all
you
next time.
guys are crushing
Yeah.
it.
We'll see you next time.
See you.
Bye.